All right, welcome everyone to the January 17, 2024 meeting of the Capital Improvements Committee. Happy New Year. We had our safety briefing. We have called everyone to order. I will entertain a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes. So moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Ms. Hall. All in favor? Unanimously approved. Next is the agenda. A couple of tweaks. We're going to combine and kind of streamline 6 and 7 that are listed here, the operations and capital projects agenda. We got a lot of information in the packet. We're not going to go through everything in the packet today, but we're going to go through a lot of it. So first, we're going to discuss East Blost expenditures and budget. We're going to then go through existing projects and get an update on those. And then we're going to have a discussion of what our future meetings are going to look like. There's a list of topics that some board members have suggested we address. I know we also want to carve out time to address phase 2 of our facilities plan. And so we'll have some discussion as well as any other topics we want to add to our agenda. And if there's time, there might be 1 or 2 other things that are in the packet that we might get to as well. So with that modification, I'll entertain a motion to approve our agenda. So moved by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Ms. Grabowski. All in favor? It's unanimous. And with that, good morning, Mr. Jackson, East Blost expenditures and budget.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm going to briefly talk about the revenues collections for East Blost 4 and some of the expenditure slides that are in the presentation. On the particular slide in front of you, you see that we're right at 23 months of 60 months within the 5-year period. The first two years are out of the way pretty much. We've collected $238 million as of November 2023. With that, we're actually collections are coming in pretty good. On the average for the first 2 years, collections have been about 35% above the budgeted amount. But keep in mind the budget, when we actually put the budget together, it was pre-pandemic. And it was actually, about 5 years ago, actually. But the revenue collections are coming in pretty good. Year to date, we're probably between $72 to $75 million ahead of schedule as far as revenue collections, which is good because most of you have seen some of the approvals for some of the projects. The cost has also increased, so hopefully the revenue collections will keep up with the increased costs that we have for the upcoming projects. The graph here just shows some revenues from 2015 through 2023, with East Blost 4 2023 being the light blue line that's up top. The next few slides just talk a little bit about the unallocated funds in E2 and the budgets we assign those unallocated funds to. Here we just have a summary of the E2 budgets. For a total budget, we have $410 million. We've spent about $406 million so far, and there's a balance of about $3.9 million left in E2. Here's a summary for E3. Total current budget of $451 million. We've expended about $358 million so far. There's a balance of about $49 million in E3 in this summary. Then you have a summary for E4. Again, we're just into the second year, finishing the second year of E4. Total budget of $458 million, with expenditures with encumbrances of about $153 million. So we have a balance of about $304 million in E4. The next three slides are just some graphics, again, talking about the revenue summaries for E2. As you can see, we're basically over 100% in all of the categories there, the revenue categories there. Same thing for E3. Then we have the revenue slides for E4. And again, for E4, we're basically halfway, well, closing the second year of E4, but we are still in pretty good shape when you look at the tax revenues and the interest income. The next slide actually gets into the projects themselves, and I will leave that discussion for the design team to talk about their individual projects. Next few slides are just some summaries of E2 by project, summaries of E3 by projects. Then you have some slides that are summaries of E4 by project. Are there any questions?
Ms. Hall?
So if I were to leave here now and go to Publix and someone said, how's your East Bluffs project going? I could say we are in robust, good health. Would that be?
So far, so good. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Tax collections are coming in pretty good. They've been stable. We were worried a few years back during COVID, but collections are still pretty good. Unfortunately, we just can't control costs, but
Yeah.
we're doing pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Jackson, I would just ask, could you add to this deck for when we post it online, the E3 unallocated?
Breakdown.
Yeah,
similar
we've got
to-
the
yes.
E2 in here. Let's just add the E3
Will do.
report when we get a chance, so we see kind of what's allocated and what's left as well.
Gotcha. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, moving on to our operations and capital projects update. Good morning, Mr. Huttinga.
Good morning.
And again, we're going to focus on existing projects and timeline and schedule.
Yes, sir. And again, we'll move this through as quickly as we can, but we do have some things that we think are important to discuss. Looking at our program schedule, we always have referred to this as our roadmap. This is the process that we go through with our projects. We list 32 separate schools with multiple projects in them. And there are a number of projects also that have zero durations. They do not show, but they're just listed. And they're put in there so that we have a history of work that had been done at that school, along with all of the remaining work that is going to be done. Now, this picks up projects in planning, design, construction, and closeout. So we're going to go through a number of these projects, so I won't necessarily just walk through the schedule. I did want to talk a little bit about capital outlay funding because that is part of our revenue. And some of you may be more familiar with capital outlay than others are, and I have a number of items here. Again, maybe just kind of hit the highlights and just, be sure that we understand that capital outlay is state funding. It's not a loan at all. We apply for these funds. These funds are provided to us based on need. And we talk about a facility condition assessment. That's important because if we're able to identify the needs of what our projects, our schools are, And then the other part of that is we have to look at our need as far as FTE. Do we have enough space for our current enrollment? If our enrollment starts going up, that curve goes up, state looks at that and says, you need more classrooms. We'll fund those classrooms through capital outlay. Obviously, we've talked a lot about this. We have gotten to the point where our FTE has leveled off and even maybe decreased a little bit. So we do not and we cannot right now apply for additional classroom capital outlay funds. So the only thing we can apply for is capital outlay funds that are associated with renovations or modifications. Modifications being typically roofs, HVAC systems, and then the renovations, of course, being finishes and such like that. So as we go through each year, the state entitles the district monies to do renovations, modifications, or new facilities. And every year we get entitlement. Last year, for the FY25 application, our entitlement was $8.3 million. That was available from the state to put into project work. We did not do an application. We did not do an application for the last couple of years because we did not need any. We weren't going to be able to fund any new classrooms, and we had gotten to the point where our projects we did not have the kind of work in our projects that the state would be funding. So after, in this summer, when we do look at the application, the next application for FY26, my guess is we're probably going to have close to $10 million of entitlement that we can tap into if we have the projects that the state will be able to fund. And the other thing that I wanted to make sure was clear is that if we do an application and the application gets approved by the state and we get a contract, if we're not able to do that project for whatever reason, if we take it out, whatever else, we don't ever lose those entitlement dollars. They'll just go back into the entitlement fund. So if we don't do a project, we're not going to lose those dollars. Now, we've got a number of projects in the next couple of FYs that we had applied for that we got our application approved, we got the contracts for. And I'm just going to mention one of them is Schumann. We're not going to be doing that project as we thought 2-3 years ago at Schumann. So we're going to have the state modify those contracts, and those dollars, we're not going to lose those dollars that were approved for Schumann. They'll just go back down into the entitlement. So we'll always keep building that entitlement through. So again, the best thing for us, obviously, is growth, because if we can show growth, if we can show we need more classroom spaces, more IUs, we have the money for that type of funding that can help us get through that. So just wanted to mention that because we haven't really talked a lot about that part of the capital outlay. The next slide does show where we are at. We need to complete our FY 2020 funding. That $38,000 pending payment is the K-8 project. We have the K-8 project now close out, payment made to the contractor. We can get all the rest of our paperwork to the state, and we certainly will expect that we will have that reimbursement. And then that will get us down to the 21, 22, 23. We did not make application in 24 or 25, and now we have to assess 26 coming up this summer if we do want to make application, but we certainly will have entitlement for that. All these 21, 22, 23 projects are these renovation modification projects. We've already been able to get reimbursement for some HVAC work, for some roof work. Those are pretty easy projects to be able to get. So you can see we're kind of chipping away at it. Our capital plan, it kind of ties into what Larry was saying. E3, obviously, there is no more funding for that project, but we will be having some interest, small interest payments. Last year, it looked like it was like $7 million in interest, so I guess maybe that's not small, but obviously as we expend funds, there will be less in interest coming in. So we've got about $95 million left to spend in E3, and the majority of that work obviously will go up into the now it's the 612 project and the athletic facilities that are being constructed out there, and then some other smaller projects along the way too. So everything past 2023 is all actual. From 2024 out is based upon our plan, our schedule, and then we do a cash flow to project those dollars. For E4, our capital plan, of course, we've got 22 and 23 are all actuals, and so everything from 24 on goes out to projected. And again, maybe just kind of tie in a little bit to what Larry was saying. Take a look at the blue, the SPLOST proceeds, the TAVIT. Interest obviously is there, and we haven't collected any state capital outlay dollars yet for E4. But you can see that the actual revenue from SPLOST, the proceeds, $118 million in 22, 117 in 23, and okay, so I'm only projecting 81 in 24. I'm a little conservative, but in the same sense, I do not want to project those types of additional dollars because that obviously is a risky thing, although, as Larry explained and said, that has been very good. It's been way over budget up to this time. But remember, we may have a lot of additional revenue, but we have a lot of additional costs too. So it's not like we're going to be able to bankroll that or do a lot of other things. You know, we need to have those funds for the projects that we have ongoing right now, and we continue to need to fund, particularly these renovation projects a little bit. You know, our desire is to be able to have swing space so that we can take schools out for a year, move them to a swing space, and do a good renovation job. Not just pick at it a little bit when the kids are in there, but be able to actually take those schools, put all new systems into them, finishes, et cetera, not have to work around the students. That's what our desire is. That's what our goal is here. And that's the way that our roadmap is beginning to show us. So, yes, we are going to be consequently putting probably a lot more money into some of these projects than what we thought we were when we first started this eSPLOST 4 program. So, yes, everything's going very well. We are on budget. We're on budget in E3, and we're on budget in E4. And we have just a ton of opportunity. I'll go through the project again. Just hit the high points of these projects. First of all, this obviously, as of the board action last week, is now a 612 complex. Contractor is working on completing his punch list work. We're getting all of the final inspections done, completed. We have furniture delivery. That furniture delivery is being stored off-site. And so when the contractor is out, everything's all signed off, we can move into the building, got the furniture ready to come in, And we can put the technology in and be ready for school to start in August of 2024. That's the building, and a couple of pictures again of the building. Now the other, and we made two separate projects here. We had the building as one project, and now we have the stadium, the field house, all the athletic fields behind the school itself, going up to the railroad tracks, is all part of this next contract that McKnight has. They've just got started out there working on excavation, foundations. One thing that, I wanted to mention too, that on the building itself, we do have solar panels to put on yet. Georgia Power will be doing that, so we're expecting that to get started in April or so. So that roof will be full of solar panels. We have a few other items in the field house that we need to have some special consideration of, looking at how we can maximize the use of that for campus police, for all the athletics that are needed for the high school and for that stadium field. So all of that is being also incorporated into this as the construction is going on. But the construction certainly is going along well. One other thing, because when you drive by there again, you just see an open field where a practice field was going to be. I think there's still a pile of dirt on there yet. As you know, all of our high schools now or will have artificial practice surfaces. And so we're going to do the same thing with that building, that school, that campus. We're going to put an artificial turf outside on, just behind the school in the play area for the practice field for the high school, along with, of course, the stadium where there will be an artificial surface in for that.
Go ahead, Dr. Howard Hall.
Thank you. The question I have, I know that we've had some changes with the long-range facility plan, and it's no longer going to be the GMG complex. Have you already ordered the signs and everything with the school name, and will that be additional cost, or how much will it be additional cost to change that?
Yes, and the cost is being evaluated.
Another question I had is,
That's cute.
since there's also some revisions with the Gould School, what are the plans to accommodate those students? Because we do know that that building needs to be renovated.
Mm-hmm.
So with those funds, I know you mentioned about additional costs and
Yep.
renovation projects. Would that
Yes.
now be included in a renovation project? And when will you
Yes,
start with that?
exactly. And again, when this plan was put together, Gould was going to no longer be a school, so we didn't have any funds per se for that. Now, we have a roofing project that's out, has just been, is out for bid right now, I believe it is, on design. It hasn't been bid yet. But, so we'll be putting a new roof on, and the building needs a new roof. We're going to put a new roof on it, and then our planning needs to be, okay, what else do we need to do in that building, and how can we do that, and how can we find the funds? Because just like Gould, there's other schools also that are going to require some additional funds. So this is where we start having to take a look at what additional funds do we have and where can we spend them.
Have you all considered how would you accommodate the students as far as swinging or
Sure.
using the mobile units
Sure.
on the property?
We have two swing sites right now that are being made available. One is Largo Tibet, and the other one is the Montgomery swing site. There may be other ones, but those two for sure, and then we can just look at our best schedule for moving schools in and out in 1 year and take care of their buildings. And we'll have to take a look at Gould, the extent of what this work needs to be, and how we can put it in line for swinging it out, doing it. Yep.
Ms. Hall?
Mr. Huttinger, along those lines, I know once we present to the public what our East Bluffs plan is, and they vote, that's set in stone. But now, the fact that Gould was a part of our, E4 plan, does that mean we have any kind of room to use funds to help with the renovation now that they're going to remain there? Is that within our purview to do?
Yeah, exactly. We believe the wording of the referendum itself will allow for that.
Oh, good.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's a relief to know, and we don't have to worry about,
Sure.
what we need to do.
Other questions on the Garden City project? I have one quick question. There's another building out there. Is the update you've provided consistent? Does it apply to the other building as well? The CTAE building?
CTAE is all part of that building complex.
Okay,
the
so that report
the
was everything out there?
612 complex,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Yep. All right, Windsor Forest, good start with construction out there now. J.E. Dunn's working on finishing up the concrete slabs, a lot of masonry work going on. One thing that I do want to mention on this, I'm not sure if we had talked about this or not previously, but we have a permit that allows us to construct the building area, the temporary parking lot and the building area. We need to have that permit amended or a second building permit to do the back area, the athletic fields. Now, that was being held up because of the extent of trees that were going to be removed. Our architect has been working with the city and showing how best we can take care of that, putting additional trees in at the front and such. And it's a process that's starting, that is in progress, but we do not have it yet. And so just wanted to make everyone aware of that we continually need to work on that and make sure that we can get the permits that we need. The site plan, you've seen this before, but again, that whole green area is where we need to get our permit. The existing building is sitting on that parking lot, so that will be demolished when the new building is completed. And again, this is a 3-story building. That first floor over in the blue, those are a lot of CTAE labs. The pink is the kitchen cafeteria. Over on the right-hand side, an auditorium. Remember, the gymnasium is existing, so we do not need to build a new gymnasium. And then the office up in the front, second floor. Again, we have a stack of classrooms here. And then in the that kind of purple area, that's ROTC. And the light greenish area is where the Learning Commons is going to be located. And then that block of classrooms goes up to the 3rd floor. And again, those are all classrooms up there also. There'll be a field house constructed, which is going to have a wrestling area, of course, in the team rooms that we construct at all of our high school facilities. So again, you've seen this picture before. We'll just continue to show it. It's going to be a beautiful project. Bloomingdale is just getting started also. Construction, you can see from this picture where the excavation work has started, and then off in the back of the site is where you start to see the footings, foundation work for that classroom portion of the facility. Again, this picture is kind of twisted, about 90 degrees, but you can see where the classroom facility goes off. Parking off in the back of the site, again, small site. We had to get a waiver from GDOE, but everything does fit on there. And this project is working through and is currently on schedule for a August 25 completion and occupancy. Godley Station, did I miss one?
Yeah, Ms. Grabowski?
Oh, there we go.
Could you go back to the site plan for just a moment on Bloomingdale?
Sure.
I know it's hard to see all the details in this, but are we going to have continual sidewalks around the entire perimeter of the site for access for students for walking to school and being able to get to the front door safely? It doesn't look like they extend to the right-of-ways.
This drawing may be a little, and it might not show that
Okay.
also, but that's something that we can check on that and
Yeah, thank you so
get
much.
back with you
Appreciate
on
it.
that, for sure. There may be a better updated drawing that would show where all those sidewalks are going to go. This one is more just kind of an overall site layout. Okay, Godley Station, lots of structure work going on. Again, the 3 classroom additions, and on schedule for having these classrooms, 24 new classrooms over at Godley, available for August 24. And again, showing the plan itself and where these are located. Pulaski, another project that is under construction. Again, scheduled to be completed and ready for August occupancy. You can see in that kind of the light blue where the new classrooms are. It says new science. Remember, that's that old existing gymnasium. We're converting that gymnasium into science rooms. And of course, this being a K-8 has a new gymnasium then that satisfies the sizes that are required. The existing parking lot is being used during construction. After that's completed, then the play fields will all be constructed there also. And you see again, masonry's coming along pretty well. See a lot of masonry, see some steel deck going on there. So we're bringing that structure up and soon having enclosure on it, and then a couple of other slides that you've seen. Savannah Arts, it's a beautiful addition to this school. And right now, the only work that is going on in there is in the courtyards. And again, in order to get into those courtyards, they actually have to have a crane and fly all the material up in there and take it all out. So it's only work that can be done on the weekends. Makes it obviously a little slower, but it is coming along well. And LED lighting is going on in that building. And that's kind of something that we're watching quite carefully because we've done a lot of LED lighting with the 2x4 drop-ins like you see up here. This has the pendants and it has the strip lighting. And so it's the first project that we've done because of the age of that school and having those kinds of fixtures in there. We wanted to replace those types of fixtures also. So and it's really looking well too. So that's coming along very good.
Ms. Grabowski?
Thank you for highlighting that and appreciating the historic context of the building. 2 quick questions. I know that a lot of the landscaping was put in right before school in the heat of the summer and didn't survive so well. Are we working with a contractor to replace the plants that did not survive and ensure that the plants that are there are maintained until they are well established?
Correct. There is a maintenance agreement that they will have, and my last information on that, which was yesterday, was the dead ones have been replaced, but of course now we're obviously into the fall winter time, so you really
Yeah,
a
you
lot
don't
of
know
the new
until the
stuff,
spring.
of course,
Yeah. Okay.
But that will be maintained.
Okay, and then second question, the lights that are now in the front of the school look beautiful, the black cast iron lights. Will the 2 Georgia power poles that are right there at the front door be removed now that we have the new lighting in place? You can get back to me if you
Yeah,
if
I'm
you
going
need
to
to
have
on
to
those.
take a
but,
look at that. I guess I'm not familiar with where that is, but
Okay,
let me take a
I
look
think I've probably
at
got a
that
picture
one.
of it if you want me to show you afterwards. Happy to do that. Thank you.
Okay, and then, of course, we do have additional cafeteria seating coming to. I'm sorry I didn't advance that slide in time. Modifications to J.G. Smith. Our architect has just received his contract, and so seeing this is the school, the first school that's going to slide over and swing into Montgomery, but it will not be this summer, 24, it will be the next summer, 25. So we have a year to clean up that building, and you may recall, we've had a number of schools in that building. Started out, with Isle of Hope, and White Bluff was in there, Mercer's in there now, Haven was in there. So there's been a lot of schools that have used that building, and nothing's been done to it. So it's important for us to get that cleaned up, get it up to date, take care of security measures, and that is all is in planning right now, in design, and we'll be doing that work this summer.
So do we have a definitive, here's what the scope of work is going to be at that school? Or is that still in discussion?
We're just working through it right now. In fact, there was a meeting yesterday to go through that, to see what needs to be done. Priority, obviously, we have some horrible restroom situations there, so they need to be taken care of. And the modulars out there are in bad shape, so something needs to be done there. And then the other part of it is just security. We want to make sure that we have a good, secure campus. And so that's the types of things. And then just, paint on the walls, nice flooring and such, it will really make a difference there. And there are some things here that I do have as a scope, but we're working through these things too, but just to let you know, and you can kind of see those types of things. All right, CELA has been jumping around. Right now, the intent is to put it in Savannah High, and so that's what the planning is working through right now, to look at how we can program CELA, where we can put it in Savannah High, how it can all work. So that will be continuing and ongoing.
Dr. Howard Hall?
Due to the long-range facility plan with Groves now, the K-12 now is the 6-12, and there's actually more space there. Have you all considered possibly putting Skela there at the new 6-12 school as opposed to Savannah High?
I can't necessarily speak as far as where it may have been looked at. There may have been a number of areas. I can just say that right now it looks like we're going to look at putting it at Savannah High.
That's just a thought maybe you all can consider as well.
That's in our Phase 2 plan, so we are still working through that, and we'll be bringing recommendations to the board.
The EV charging center, again, this construction got started a little late, getting delayed in permitting. It has started now, doing a lot of site clearing, and obviously when it rains, it becomes a very muddy situation. But it's just a big parking lot, and with a canopy and with all of the charging devices that are needed. So we'll have to see how the weather is coming on this thing, but we're looking for an April completion. And again, for temporary charging, it looked like it was going to go to Port Wentworth, but now we're actually putting a temporary charging unit at Southwest. So that's in the process of getting put in and getting tested so that we will be able to charge up the buses. I believe that's where they're going to be stored now, too, until the new parking area is ready. Renovations at STEM Academy. Again, this is one where we are going to be swinging the school out so that we can do major work in this building. We've got an outline here of the type of projects that are going to be done. these are going to be kind of similar to all of the schools that we swing out. This is kind of the standards things that we are going to be looking at. These are the kinds of things that have ongoing issues as far as either deferred maintenance costs. They're just life, building life items that have extinguished their lives and need to be replaced. So that's pretty standard. Some nice renderings of what the STEM will be when it's completed. Henderson Formie, again, another.
Mr. Huttinger, may I ask a question, please, about STEM? Just before the holidays, we met with the design team to review the renovations and discuss some elements of our design guidelines. It sounds like they may not have been considered in the scope. Where are we on reevaluating those, and does that affect the timeline of, because I know right now you've got it scheduled for early bid in 2024, so if it needs to be after the meeting, but I'd appreciate an update on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I ask this every time, we're not touching the field. I mean, we're not building on top of the field or taking part of the field for,
No, sir.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Huttinger, you mentioned the solar panels that are coming to the 612. Is that kind of our directive going forward, that at all of these upgrades, we're going to try to do that, or is it just particular places?
For our new schools, yes. In fact, Windsor Forest will have solar panels on the
Okay.
roof. You look for the best places to put them, obviously.
Yeah.
Some of our sites just don't allow
Just
for
don't,
it.
yeah.
But when we can program it in, we can design it in, such as at I keep saying K-12, I'm so used to that.
Yeah, we know what you
At the
mean.
612, and now we're doing it with Windsor Forest, and we'll continue to look for those
And Bloomingdale,
opportunities.
that,
Same thing, yes.
good, okay. What would you say, just off the top of your head, is a cost savings for us, that we're going that green at least all of our new places?
There-
What kind of savings are we
Yeah,
talking about?
we get updated slides from Georgia Power, and I'll show those, and I'm not going to talk in great detail about it, but it does have a lot of that information in
Okay.
there, okay?
All right, thank you.
Ms. Grabowski?
Ms. Hall, thank you for asking that question. I think that's a great example of where, I know we look at our new schools, and I know we're going to talk about design guidelines in the coming year. I'm not sure why we don't consider it in our renovations as well, especially at our first STEM certified school that we've had in the district, where so much of their curriculum is around STEM and STEAM. So I just want to draw that correlation, because I think it's so important that you made the comment earlier about not peck at improvements when we swing our students out. And I'm glad you said that, because I don't think everyone realizes the amount of effort that teachers and staff and faculty have to put into totally breaking down and rebuilding their classrooms for a year and then doing it back again. So I think it's absolutely incumbent that as we look at these renovations, we do look holistically at how we can apply our design guidelines and do everything that's feasible to bring our older schools up to the same standard. And it seems that we have this kind of separation of what we do in renovations and what we do for new schools. And I really hope that we can get away from that and see how we can get our existing schools up to the standard that we're providing for our new schools. Because we have beautiful new schools. And I think we have a greater potential to do more with our renovations. So I look forward to continued discussion around that. Thank you.
Good point. And I think you're seeing us move in that direction.
We need to make sure we're doing it all the ones that are in the program.
Right, because we have done a lot of renovation work and keep the students in there and just kind of work around them. And, Savannah Arts was a good example. I mean, quite frankly, that was a successful project, but it did have a lot of issues associated with it because it was not allowed for the contractors to do a complete job in it. So I think you're going to see a lot of improvement in that area.
Couple things on that issue. One, slide, I think 110, has a dollar figure of $11,300 in savings over just 2 months for the solar panels at Savannah High. so we can maybe extrapolate that out. The other issue is we've talked, years ago, we talked about adding solar, and we even looked at hydrothermal for renovations and also for new projects. And part of the issue, several years ago at least, was the weight of the panels and whether the 50-year-old roofs had the infrastructure to support them and all the electrical stuff. But I 100% agree that's something we should take a fresh look at and overhaul our design guidelines and incorporate that into planning.
And I also recall Ms. Miller-Kegler mentioning one time when we had power loss and had many of our schools that had to dismiss, that those that had a solar array could stay in school because they still had power. So I think that's an important consideration, that we look not only at, the cost savings, but educational benefits and opportunities come with it too.
And I do want to remind people, we've had 2 national awards. We went to Washington as Green Schools, Gadsden Elementary. I don't know if people know, right there on Main Street, if you go over there, you're going to see some remarkable things that are helping climate change and helping our children understand the importance of us going green. So it would be nice to get another award sometime and get to go to Washington, from here. So we need to keep that at the forefront. And it's as long as we're intentional about it, Bill, I think that's the thing. Sometimes we can't do it, but if our intention is to try, then
Sure.
that'll help get us down the road.
I was up at Cisco's building in Midtown Atlanta in December, and they had this solar film. It looked like tint that you put on your windows for your vehicles, and it were flexible. And then down at the bottom, there was a little clip, and it was harvesting solar energy and powering, all their lights and several workstations and things like that. That's probably like cutting edge, too expensive right now, but that's where we're heading. So to your point, Ms. Hall, we need to be intentional about planning for it.
Okay, for Henderson, kind of same thing that we talked about with STEM, as far as how this project will proceed through. Again, they will be swung out, relocated, so that we can do a nice upgrade to that facility. And again, there's a list of the items. Again, pretty much similar to what we talked about when we're doing these modifications to these schools. Largo Tibet, this obviously is going to turn into a swing school at the end of this school year. In order to put STEM in there, we have to add some portable classrooms, take a couple of the larger rooms and subdivide them. Certainly look at that security fencing. Need to look at that in all of our campuses, and we continue to do that. And then, we've heard about the flooding issues that they have there. We need to do some correction to the site drainage, canopies, and the fire alarm needs to be replaced. So those are the types of renovation work that's going to be going on in Largo, and get it ready for STEM, so that at the end of the 24-25 school year, STEM will be able to move in there. Garrison, just a lot of ongoing things at that school, looking right now at the front office area. Number of areas have been completed before. Again, a good one to take a look at and say, if we don't swing these schools, this is what's going to happen. Little here, little there, little there, This one has a major HVAC renovation project this summer. That is a very extensive project. And as you know, summers just keep getting shorter on us. A lot of work has to take place. And so just to be aware of that. And then we'll be able to get in there the next summer and still continue with other renovation work that needs to be done. Hubert, again, just pretty much in planning also. Some Garrison pictures of some of that stuff that had been done. Cafeteria here, media center, but those are some nice improvements to that school. We are doing a lot of re-roofing projects. Southwest is in progress. West Chatham, Port Wentworth is in progress, and a number of other ones here. Gould, of course, we have to get a new roof on that. And the other one that's going to, affect us here also is Whitney. Right now, we just have a temporary membrane over the roof over here. Not this one here, but that one over there. And we need to upgrade. We got to replace our deck in there and put a new roof on there. Now, we've got that schedule starting to get worked out, so we're hoping that we can get started with that work real soon. It will require relocation of some of the activities in here, particularly some of the committee meetings. Now, we're going to try to keep it available for the board, okay? And I'm hoping that we can work around that. But a number of the other committee meetings will have to be relocated end of January into February. HVAC, again, Garrison, Coastal, and Savannah High are all scheduled for this summer's work. And the practice fields, you may have seen them. Oops. All 5 of those schools' practice fields, high school practice fields, are complete. The only thing left in that contract is at New Hampstead. There's a track, and we talked about you just can't put that track surface on until you have good, steady, controlled temperatures. And we're not in that situation in January, February, or March probably. So we'll be looking at starting that in April and putting that new track in place.
Ms. Hall?
Telling you, I was caught unawares a couple of weeks ago because my assumption, could you go back to the slide on the practice fields? So my assumption was that this artificial turf was extended at Savannah High and all, but I'm finding out now, and I have made Ms. Kegler aware of it, that the baseball practice fields at Savannah High are just about, I would say, not usable, and spring season is gearing up. So what can be done, because when you say practice fields, if you go over to Savannah High, the football practice field, I mean, absolutely magnificent, but the baseball fields are terrible.
Sure. Why don't, Bob May is going to come
Oh.
up and do maintenance, and
Oh,
he's
okay.
got that
All right.
project.
Thank you.
And
Thank
he'll
you. I
take
can
care
wait.
of answering that at that time. Sure. All right, and then we have a number of, again, these projects are in design, planning, and yes.
Sorry, Dr. Howard Hall?
Woodville Tompkins, their practice field and everything is in design.
Yes.
Now, I know that Woodville Tompkins does not have a football team yet. Hint, hint. What does that design look like? I know they do have a champion, they have a state champion track team. And the track team usually practice around the perimeter of a football practice field. So have you all considered that type of design?
Woodville Tompkins is going to look very similar to the other high schools as far as having a field that will be artificial surface. We haven't done that one yet because Garden City is using that area for their athletics, their summer and programs and such. But that one will be coming up, and it's just going to be an artificial surface only, and it will, of course, have the fencing around it and things like that. But that's what the plans are right now for it.
So will it be ball fields? I'm not understanding
No,
what
not ball
that's
fields.
looking
Just
like.
just a football, soccer type field, not ball fields.
Are there any, plans for future use of?
We would have to look at, right now, there are no plans for any further work on that campus site, okay? But we certainly can take a look at that.
Okay.
And then again, a number of these projects will have to, as we start looking at our planning, Some of these schools are best if they do swing out, and if you only have 2 swing sites right now, it starts pushing these projects out in 26, 27, 28. So either we have to provide ourselves some more swing schools or look at some other ways to do these projects and still maintain school yet, but that's all part of the planning process. And again, a number of other projects. I won't necessarily go through these because a lot of these are in just planning phases, but I did want to I'll show it in a little bit. This is the slide shows all of the practice fields completed to date. And this is what we would be doing at Woodville Tompkins. It would just be looking like one of these fields, and it'd be lit, so they would have use of it. And the other one that I wanted to make a point of is the interchange. A number of you may remember when you took a look at the bathrooms that the bus drivers had to use. Well, this interchange restroom facility is ready to go now, and so you can see much, much better conditions, and so that's a huge improvement for those folks. In Georgia Power, I'm not going to go through this in detail. You can take a look. There's a lot of information on these slides, and I think, Ms. Hall, you might be able to find answers to your questions. I know Mr. Kashmar was mentioning that as far as him looking across this. The LED lighting, continue to do that, looking at the projects as we go through. Of course, the solar projects, Savannah, Groves, electric bus charging, all the LED lights updates that are being done throughout the schools. And again, this pretty much just shows this does show what that environmental impact is. So I think if you look at these slides carefully, they may help you get some answers to some of the questions that you've had regarding, what are the impacts associated with this and what are the potential savings associated with this. They had a lot of estimates, and they continue to update those.
Mr. Huddinga, in the interest of time, I want to get to M&O and then also board discussion on topics. If anyone has questions on anything Mr. Huddinga has gone over or the Georgia Power update and then the other slides before M&O is on the audio enhancement, I would ask that you please ask Mr. Huddinga afterwards. If there are any quick questions now. Mm-hmm. If not, if we could go to the M&O update, and then we'll get to some board discussion and maybe one other topic. But appreciate the level of detail and scope of information, not just today, but also in the packet. There's a lot of information, and thank the entire facilities team for putting it together.
Okay.
Please follow up with the facilities team on any questions.
Yes.
Good morning, team. Obviously, we wanted to take a quick opportunity this morning to continue to highlight the partnership and the synergy that exists and must be strengthened between maintenance and operations and, of course, capital projects as we work together to through these construction projects and renovation projects. Some of the things I did want to point out, obviously, is the seamless integration of M&O and capital projects during the design and development. I think it's vitally important that we have the systems owners, which are our mechanics and maintenance folks, making sure that they have input onto the systems that are being integrated into our new schools and renovations. One, to make sure that they are consistent with standardization across the district, and then also that they're integrating well with our existing systems, and so we can try to head off any issues that may arise from new systems not being able to talk to older systems. And then, of course, while the maintenance and operations support and sustainment efforts, they must remain in place during most of these projects. We still have stay-in-place systems like HVAC, electrical, and plumbing that must be maintained during the projects. And then, of course, we want to provide support services for managers as needed to minimize minimize delays and mitigate risk. And then finally, when it comes to the handoff processes, this is critically important, again, because we are the systems owners. Through the final walkthroughs, the punch list, lock and key is a huge piece of that handoff. And then, of course, making sure that our folks are aware, trained on the newer systems, and then they also go through the functional checks during turnover. And, of course, they are the critical eye for proper installation and functionality of the systems and equipment. Just a quick overview of some of the projects that we are overseeing here in maintenance and operations. Again, not just day-to-day maintenance and operations of the facilities, but some of the things that we've been able to accomplish over the last year. Working in coordination with our campus security folks for fencing requirements. I know that there's been a great deal of question and concern at some of our schools, especially the ones with heavily wooded areas. We've also, got a couple of issues with homeless encampments and stuff like that we've addressed not only with campus security, but with some of our partnering neighbors, such as CSX, and working directly with them to answer a lot of those questions. So we do have several bids in place right now for new fencing around the schools. The listed here, Godley Station, Butler, Hubert. One of the issues, obviously, that we're having is that we're competing with our fencing contractors. We're competing with a lot of the other construction that's going on around Savannah. So trying to get those things timed out and scheduled has been a bit of a challenge. But I definitely, leverage Savannah Chatham County Public School Systems, our prowess in the area to make sure that we remain a priority, and we'll continue to work that. To answer directly, there was a question with regard to Savannah High School baseball and softball field. There's a couple of other, obviously there's other projects, and if there's any questions about those, I'm willing to answer them. But in particular, Savannah High School baseball and softball field is actually is near and dear to my heart, and I have actually walked out there when I first got assigned as the executive director, myself and landscaping director, Mr. Cummings, and then met up with the athletic directors, and we walked the ball fields out there and saw the issues that we were facing. So that one, along with 3 other schools, we knew that we had a mole cricket issue, so we dealt with that. And of course, all of this is going to take some time in working with the seasons and the weather, but some of the things that we've already addressed the mole cricket issue. We went in and did a rye seeding on 2 of the fields that we knew had irrigation in place, and that was working. Savannah High School, unfortunately, it does have irrigation in place, but as the practice installation, the practice field installation was happening, we weren't sure how that was going to affect the in-place irrigation system, so we kind of had to wait for that. Now that they're done, repairs are being made as we speak. The ball fields have been turned over. We've actually built a fence around the softball field to give the softball field some, the protection it needs and to outline the ball field. And then we are currently turning over the fields, the clay structures and stuff like that. They're a little bit packed, but they are supposed to be like that as a playing surface. But we are attending to those and turning those over, and we have a plan within the next 2 weeks that we will be overseeding both the baseball and softball fields with the centipede seed that's already in the ground. And then, of course, once the irrigation is working, we'll start seeing some life back on those. And then, of course, we do have a working partnership with our annual contractors, our landscapers, to maintain those fields. And then, of course, staying in close contact with the athletic directors at Savannah High School to make sure that they have the backup, the manpower, and the equipment needed to maintain those fields. So it is certainly not fallen off my scope, I guarantee it.
So I appreciate that report on the natural grass fields. I will say this, there's a reason we went to turf, artificial turf, for our stadium, no, not the practice fields, the game fields. I'm not supposed to use stadium anymore.
The playing surface, yes, sir.
And also our practice fields. And despite our best efforts and despite our internal crews it is really difficult to keep grass healthy in this region. And so I'm going to ask that as part of our long-range planning, and there's been some discussions, could we get an estimation of what it would take to put artificial turf on all baseball and softball fields as well? And I'd like to have that information for board planning purposes. I've heard from lots of coaches and athletic directors that spend countless hours maintaining their fields because we just don't have the manpower or the budget to properly maintain them. They need 15 cycles of pesticide and fertilizer, and we're just not doing it. And it's just because it's a lot. And it's a burden on the coaches and players and athletic directors. And I appreciate this fix. Hopefully we'll get it to a place where it's playable. But I'd love to see us artificially turf baseball and softball, and then all we're maintaining is natural landscaping, plants, that kind of thing around the schools, but not the play fields. And lots of schools have gone that way. So I think if we just get a quote, the board can decide what it wants to do. If we do it over several years, if we put it in East Blos 5, I just think that information would be helpful for planning purposes.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Ms. Hall?
Speaking about staffing, how is staffing going at maintenance and operations for you? Do we have the people we need in place?
It's going, ma'am. We are still currently at 77% manning. I understand that's not a good answer, but we are currently at 77% manning. One of the challenges that we are trying to overcome and we're working to overcome is we have job descriptions and stuff like that just we're not real sure what exactly it is that they detail that they're doing. So one of the things that we have done is we have rewritten the job descriptions for some of our major disciplines like HVAC, electrical, plumbing. And what they're going to do is once we've implemented those and put those on the street is they're going to allow us to hire folks that we know have come in with the qualifications and certifications necessary to do these specific tasks. And in that, one of the other things that I have been concentrating on in-house, particularly with our folks, is that with these job descriptions, we're also building internal professional development plans for our folks because we want to train them up. We want to, obviously grow from within.
Yes.
So we are training them up and making sure that, we're giving priority to the folks that we already have. And so, again, on top of that, there's a multi-layered discussion and a conversation that we've begun in M&O with our staff, and then, of course, moving up through Ms. Kegler and with the rest of the divisions is that we want to start talking about things like professional development, training capabilities and availability with our local partners here, and then also pay tiers is another thing I think that needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions for M&O, Dr. Howard Hall?
Yes, I always ask this, Mr. Cashmore, if we could let Mr. Formey just give us a brief update on the LMWBEs and what he's doing. Do we have time for maybe
No, that's not
2
on the
minutes?
agenda for today, and we were trying to keep this to an hour, and we're already over, and we've got a couple of other things we need to cover. And I actually had an informal conversation with Mr. Formey a week or two ago about doing that presentation at a future CIC meeting,
Okay.
but not today.
Okay, exactly. I do think it's important that we do hear from him, and maybe I should have thought of it earlier to include that on the agenda, but
Sure.
I didn't know about your previous conversation, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, all right. Any questions for maintenance? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda, I want to do some committee planning. This shouldn't take too long, but we have a pretty robust schedule of meetings for the rest of the year. If they're not on the website already, they will be. So they are February 15, March 13, May 16, July 17, August 21, September 18, October 23, and December 4. I had previously solicited topics that the committee and board or board wanted to address. And I also asked Ms. Miller-Kegler for input as well, and Dr. Watts. So here's the list of topics that have been suggested so far, in addition to our normal updates. So one, it's review, finalize the local facility plan, Phase 2. I think the conversation with Dr. Watts has been, as she formulates that plan, maybe have some discussions at future CIC meetings about those prior to them being brought to the full board. So there can be some polishing along the way. And I'll coordinate with Ms. Miller-Kegler and Dr. Watts on the timing of that and, when in future meetings. Another ongoing project, it's a review and update of the design guidelines. And I noticed in the packet of materials that Ms. Miller-Kegler had started some internal meetings and discussions on updating those design guidelines. That's been an ongoing committee and board goal as well. There was a markup that was circulated last year, and I had I want to try to get that project done so we, updated design guidelines can be brought to the board for review and approval and implementation as quickly as possible. And I'm going to put Ms. Grabowski on the spot. I know last year, and she's had a particular interest in the design guidelines. I'm going to ask that you're a subcommittee of one for this committee. If you work with our facilities team on kind of shepherding that project through, and then once it's at a point where it's marked up and people are happy, bring it back to CIC for further discussion and review. Is that okay?
Be happy to. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Third item on the agenda, and I feel like it's been on the agenda since I came onto the board in August of 2011. What are we doing with 208 Bull Street? My goal this year is we make a decision. I don't think that's overly optimistic, unless someone disagrees. But Dr. Watts, I'm hoping that's part of your long-range facility planning. I'm just highlighting it because it's been a topic of discussion for 12 years now. Nobody's fault, but I'm the longest-serving board member sitting up here, so it's my fault. But let's try to get something done there. All right, the next item, this has come up through some inquiries made to several board members, and some board members I know have met with some private individuals, but partnerships for workforce housing. There's some initiatives around the country, around the state, where public entities have partnered with private developers to develop workforce housing that offered discounted or subsidized workforce housing for their employees first. I'm not saying we should do it or we shouldn't do it, but there are enough successful projects out there, and there have been some proposals made in Chatham County that we ask that the process and the idea be studied. I know our facilities folks have looked at it a little bit. If we have time, maybe we can address it in more detail after this discussion, but that's something for active discussion and vetting as well. Next item was review of our schedules for our contractors. Some of our policies have schedules attached. Maybe they're fine, but we haven't looked at them in a while. And, as noted by some of our speakers, the market's competitive. There's a lot of construction going on out there. So related to schedules for our contractors, it's also our internal staffing and compensation model for district employees as well. So kind of a fresh look at what we're doing, both in paying our contractors and vendors, particularly schedules for design professionals, but just kind of how we do a 4-year review of all of our policies. Let's do a fresh review, our internal comp and pay structure, and what we're doing externally as well. And then professional development as well for, I think that had been mentioned earlier, for our folks so that they stay on top of industry trends. And when the film solar panel stuff comes out, they're on top of it, and we're already incorporating that if financially feasible. So that was the list of topics that had been put together from board input and from staff input as well. Are there any other issues or topics, committee thinks we should address, wants to address, wants information on, wants to discuss in our meetings moving forward. Ms. Hall?
What Tanya Howard Hall was saying, if we could please get Mr. Formey on the next agenda in February, because that is something that many of us have constituents who are very concerned about. So I don't want them to feel that we are evading or, kicking the can down the road. So the sooner we can hear from him, the better.
I think we heard from him at the last CIC update in October, maybe, but we'll get him on.
It wasn't a thorough, it was kind of a
Okay,
hit and miss.
I'm not arguing, I'm just saying, we heard from him, but nobody asked for it to be put on the agenda today, and we'll get it on either February or March, depending on Mr. Formey's availability. Okay. Any other topics or areas for discussion? Okay. Ms. Grabowski?
We had talked about, as part of the Finance Committee, looking at our purchasing policy, and I think that finance is probably the best place for that to go, but there is certainly overlap with CIC, so I think just coordination between CIC, analysis as well as the Finance Committee on the purchasing side.
And I think when we did a significant overhaul of CIC-related policies, purchasing was tweaked as well. So that's a good point. There needs to be, they need to work in conjunction with each other. I'll add that to the list. All right. I see Ms. Miller-Kegler came in. Good morning. Could you, I saw you listed, but then I saw Attorney Dennison listed. Could you, if you can, could you briefly address where we are on looking at the workforce housing proposal and kind of what we still need to do, what information we need, et cetera?
Yeah, good morning.
Morning.
And I apologize for the delay. I had a medical appointment. So we are looking, I had an opportunity to speak with Anita. I can't think of her last name. She did call.
Smith-Dixon.
Thank you. And wanted to make sure that we pull Brian, our attorney, in relative to just kind of how we fit into that, what those opportunities are for us as a school district. Because, as you remember, we always have to be mindful that the land and the buildings are owned by the state of Georgia. And making sure that however we manage that piece, the land, what those collaborations are. So having that dialogue and having Brian with me while I'm having those discussions are paramount for me. I don't want to commit to something that we can't do. So generally what we do is reach out to Mickey Schubert and our facilities, who's our facilities coordinator, just for some guidance. So we are taking a look at that as a piece that has come forward. We've been receiving some information and requests relative to that in regards to property that we own. So that is an active issue for us. As I was back there taking notes, I did get the list, seen it before I had some input, but what I would ask, if at all possible, if we can try to prioritize what's going to be in this quarter, the next quarter, so we can have a schedule, so we'll know how to plan our work. So when it's time to bring it forward, a lot of that we've worked on. We've worked on the professional development piece. I mean, we're proud of some of our newly certified PMP professionals. That's not an easy task to be PMP certified. We have people that's at the top of their game right now in regards to understanding facilities and construction. So based on your list that we have developed this morning, if there's an opportunity to prioritize it. If number 8 now becomes number 1, I would like to have that. So I'm not working on number 6, but you want me to bring you information on number 1 first. So that would help if you all can get that back to us. We can get those assigned and make sure that we are providing you what you need in a timely manner.
Sure. What I'll do, Ms. Miller-Kegler, is I'll put the list together and I'll email you and Dr. Watts with a proposed kind of schedule, knowing that we want the Mr. Formey report sooner rather than later.
Exactly.
But I'll work with you all on a schedule and then circulate it to the committee. And then once everybody's like, yeah, this looks good, then we'll move forward.
And now that
in
we have a meeting
direction.
scheduled, it makes our work
Sure.
easier because now we know what we're planning, we know what's coming up, and making sure that we can disseminate the information in a timely manner. So schedules are always good for us, as a lot of times what we do is not scheduled whenever there's an emergency or something occurs. So that would help us tremendously.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moss?
So getting back to the question regarding workforce housing, I didn't hear an answer, so.
So what, tell me what was missing. I think what I heard, the information that I received, was there was a look for possibly considering parking area behind Garrison. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
I was
we're
just
very-
saying, just in general.
Okay, so I'm very familiar with what the request was.
Okay.
Then the request is, then the next step is that land that we can make available as a school district for
Right.
that particular project.
Right.
What piece is the expectation from the district? Is it land?
Yeah.
So if it is land, then will the state allow us to participate as a partnership for workforce housing?
Okay.
So I don't have an answer for you, but I do have some due diligence related to that. We've also engaged our realtor in that process, so we'll be more than happy to share some of the work that we have completed. All of that's documented. We've engaged Diana in that particular project as well.
Okay. No, I'm sorry. It's just when I looked at the agenda and it had Mr. Dennis, and I thought there was like, he was going to issue some advice to us or something. so.
And we have been actually having the conversations, and I think when I talked with Anita, I told her, a lot of what I want to do is make sure I don't go down the road.
I understand.
And I shouldn't be on that road.
Got it.
Because is it legal? What's the state standing? And then what it is from our legal counsel
Right.
as well. I don't want to waste their time, waste our time, but if the state said there's some opportunities, if our legal counsel said there's some opportunities, then we continue.
My understanding is Decatur City Schools are further down the road on this.
Okay.
I may be misinformed. There may be some unique aspect to their project, but that may be also a place to start.
That's always a good point of departure if someone else has taken
Yeah,
that
let them do
on.
the heavy lifting.
We don't have to recreate that particular wheel.
Ms. Grabowski?
Thank you for the update. I have been serving on the Chatham County Housing Coalition and also working with Laura Lane McKinnon with Housing Savannah on a task force that's planning an event coming up in February called There's No Place Like Home. It's on Thursday, February 22nd. I'll forward the invitation to all the board members as well as to the staff. And it really is an opportunity to convene a public conversation around many of the issues that I think touch us as a district. So encourage and invite any of you who are able to attend to do so. So I'll forward the information.
Ms. Hall?
I've been in discussion with Anita also. She was at that original meeting with us. And one just simple question that I'm asked by people, if we were to, because it sounds like such a wonderful thing, if we could do something that would ease the economic burden on our employees in terms of their housing. But if we put a teacher in an apartment and then that teacher has to leave, what happens? Or for some reason we part ways, that kind of thing. So if Decatur actually has a successful model, that would be a good place
would.
to see, what kinds of things like that, how they're able to do that kind of thing.
And that would be valuable information, and whenever that information is available and it can be passed on to us, then that gives us an opportunity to, again, not recreate the wheel, but we'll certainly reach out to them, because specific to that particular piece of land, there were some plans internally for that. So, because parking is a challenge over there. So if that land doesn't work, then if this is something that the board has an interest in, we'll be looking at what else could be available. But if you've spent any time over at Garrison recently, they are parking challenged. They really are.
I know that developer was going to put a underground parking
Okay.
and let the district use some of that, but we're getting in the weeds.
Yeah.
The first question is, Can the district
Yes.
say, here's some land?
Yes.
We're going to give it to you in exchange, we get subsidized housing for our folks? That's the first question. And then all the, we get in the weeds after that, so.
Right. Yeah,
All
so
right.
Decatur has forged down that road, and certainly we'll be reaching out to our colleagues for that information.
Thank you. All right, we're 22 minutes past where I wanted to be. I apologize. I probably contributed to 19 of those. But thank you, everyone, for your preparation and presentations this morning. Next meeting is, what did I say, February 15? And with that, we're adjourned.